الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
قل أعوذ برب الناس.
And another very important aspect is what did the ulama in the past used to do? The most common thing that they used to do, the most common position, is they used to actually even take ilm. They used to actually take ilm from innovators. If that innovator has something specific, even if they're calling towards a bid'ah. Yeah? So for example, perhaps one of the best examples of this is Qatada. Qatada was an innovator, but Qatada was also one of the main narrators in Basra. So that's why they would take matters that have to do with their hadith. They would learn from them tafsir. They would learn from them fiqh. Adi. They did that. And if anyone said anything, I can't remember who it was, but I think like one of the classical scholars said to Yahya ibn Ma'in, I don't take and from innovators that call towards their innovation. It's either Yahya ibn Ma'in or Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan. It's probably Yahya ibn Ma'in. And he's like, why are you going to do Qatada? This is silly. You have to. Because there are some specific people that have a form of knowledge, or have some knowledge, that you can't find elsewhere. طيب, yallah, bismillah, I don't want to take from Mu'tazila anything. Are you going to toss away Tafsir al-Zamakhshari? Are you going to toss away Ilm al-Balagha? Abdul Qahir? Are you going to get rid of Abdul Qahir? And then we have no Balagha. He's the guy who formulated al-Balagha. And he put it into words, because you find ideas of Balagha spread out in random places. He formulated the ilm. He turned it into a science. Is that what we're going to do, But there's no doubt that there are some ulama that you have to take from because of their specialization in some fields. And I spoke about this in the past. There will never be a book as beneficial as a commentary for Sahih Bukhari like Fath al-Bari. Now, even though Ibn Hajar has opinions that I will disagree with, that many people here will disagree with, that Salafis generally disagree with, you have no choice. You have no choice but to rely on Ibn Hajar. So, now that that's been said, you will find yourself closer to some people that you refer to as innovators today than you will be to Ibn Hajar, or you will be to Abdul Qahir, or even to Qatada. However, you will still, when speaking about Ibn Hajar or Abdul Qahir or Qatada, you'll say Rahimahullah wa radiyallahu anhu, and you'll appreciate them, you'll praise them. But today, when it comes to someone with a minor issue, an issue smaller than the issues that were held by those scholars, what's your reaction going to be? Unfortunately, anyone with the smallest issue today gets absolutely cancelled. And this is a reality.
So the reason I'm making this video about Farid is because lately I was searching, looking over through his videos, and then what I found is how to deal with innovators. So I said, I'm gonna check this out, right? Let me check this out. When I watched it, you feel like Farid is mixing the East with the West, and I'm not saying anything wrong about Farid. MashaAllah, he is very knowledgeable. He has very good ways of debating, of spreading his knowledge. But what I'm trying to say is this video that he made about how to deal with the innovators is very misguiding, even to all those who look up to him. and mashallah, Farid has a lot of subscribers, a lot of views, a lot of people looking up for him. After his refutation videos he's making against anti-Islamists, Islamophobes, or those people who lie about Islam, right? He has people looking up towards him and lending him an ear. And Farid is right now basically going east and west in this matter that he is not, how can I say it? He has no knowledge about. Like, he has no knowledge about a matter, about how to deal with innovators, yet he's bringing it up and he's casting, going east and west, east and west. This one will cause the layman to start doubting. So when the layman starts to doubt, he will start to take from the innovators, and he will fall into their fitna. And this is a layman, remember, this is a layman, maybe one who has no knowledge, or maybe a student of knowledge that is a beginner, or even not only a beginner, even a student of knowledge that is in between, right? This video is very misleading to them. So I suggest for brother Farid, and as a nasiha, to remove this video, because like I said, Ibn Rajab rahimahullah said that if there, and listen, many people will say that you didn't advise them privately. It is not shart, it is not a condition to advise privately. Okay, the one who spreads his bid'ah openly, or spreads his sins openly, or his deception openly, we must refute it so that people who listen to it openly will not be deceived. And Farid has done the same thing. Last time he went with Sheikh Uthman ibn Farouk, and they made a video against Dr. Zakir Naik on an issue, on a particular issue, right? And this particular issue, they made a refutation about a big scholar, right? So people are not going to call right now, oh, you're criticizing scholars. You're not going to say that to Farid, of course. If it was anyone else other than Farid, then they might say that. But as for Farid, they will not say that. So this is what I mean. Many people look up at Farid through his refutation videos. And he has many views, mashallah. He has many subscribers. And I guarantee you, he has many laymen. Laymen, even, you don't have to be a scholar. Like a big scholar to be deceived, right? You can be like a very knowledgeable person in that, and while listening to Farid, you might be, he might cast doubts on you. And this is similar, reminds me of a similar way of the Ikhwanis. For example, one time I was sitting down, I was discussing an issue with a person about Aqidah, and I told him, where is Allah? He said, he's above the throne. That's what I see. And then I said, okay, does Allah have a place? It's ma'roof that if you learn Aqidah, Allah's makan is the ulu. Everyone knows that, above the throne, the ulu, right? And when I was saying, he said, no, Allah, we don't know where Allah is. Allah has no place. He's saying Allah has no place. I told him, okay, so where is he? When the slave girl, when the Prophet told her, where is Allah, she pointed up to Sama. And then the guy basically started to go east and west. He said that Allah is above the throne. But how will you catch them? The person started to do what? He started to do the actions of the atheists. He starts saying, okay, but we cannot point up in the sky. We don't know the direction of Allah, right? Because the earth is a globe. He started explaining, oh, the earth is a globe and the earth turns around. And so I thought, okay, so this slave girl, she was in Saudi Arabia. And then the Prophet told her, she pointed up to the sky. Right? This is from the ilm al-ghayb, from the unseen matters. But you see how this person, instead of going back to the Sharia of Allah and the Aqidah, he advanced and used science. And this can be deceiving, because he says the earth is round. So if I have to point up to the sky, I can point up east, I can point up west, depending on the location I am. This is what he's saying, right? Subhanallah, the Prophet went up to, during Isra and Mi'raj, he was lifted up to the heavens. So they will say, oh, he was lifted from Saudi Arabia, so the heaven would be, the earth is a globe, heaven would be this way, so it would be in this direction. I told him, this is This is not permissible. This is haram. Allah is literally above the throne. Allah is fi sama, and I moved up to the sky, wherever I am, right? This is from the unseen matters. You cannot say, oh, the earth, oh, you start going through science, the earth is round, and Allah is here, and this jiha, and this jiha, and it depends on which jiha, so He's everywhere, basically. According to him, oh, if you're even in Antarctica and you're pointing up to the sky, you would point, below. So you see how that happened. He said that Allah is His sama, above the skies. This is what he said at first. Allah is above the skies, is above His throne. I told him when I said which place is He in, and he basically didn't say al-ulu. Allah has a jiha, right? He's in a jiha. He basically said Allah has no direction, no jiha. And he said, he started bringing science, the earth is round, and this and that. I told him this is from the matters which is impermissible. And a person who starts to indulge in these matters, he will make many mistakes, because your mind doesn't know. So why are you going into science right now and saying that, when it's already proven in the books of Aqidah that this Allah is in the sky and the slave were pointed up? So this is from the ways, and this guy, subhanAllah, his Aqidah is pure Salafi. When you're gonna ask an Ash'ari, he's going to deceive you. He's going to say that Allah is above the throne. But when you go into details and you go down to find out what his Aqidah is, you say, okay, does Allah have a jihad direction? And he will start to go into science, saying the earth is round, the earth is this, the earth is that. Allah has no place, Allah has no location, Allah has no jihad, no direction. This is what he will start saying, and this leads to atheism. Because when people say, oh, science says this, but this is what Aqidah says, there is something wrong in Aqidah, and then they start saying, oh, maybe Aqidah meant this, and this is, we advanced in Aqidah, we changed our position in Aqidah, and then what happens is they say, afterwards, when they keep indulging in these matters, they will later say, okay, the Aqidah is wrong, and this is what science explains, and science is briefly shown to us, so Aqidah is wrong, therefore, and science is correct, and then this will lead them to atheism. And when the Prophet Muhammad says, oh, Abu Dhar, do you know where the sun goes? It goes, when it sets, it goes, prostrates to under the throne to its Lord, and then comes back, and asks permission to come back, right? People will say, okay, how is that possible? The sun doesn't move, they say. The earth moves around the sun, not the sun the other way. This is what they say. And they say, how is it possible to go for the sun to prostrate under the throne? Like, where is it supposed to be? Right? And when you tell them, so I told us that, okay, so I told him this hadith, he was quiet. Afterwards, I told him, see, this is from the matters of the unseen. I told him afterwards, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there are angels on the right and the left. Can you see them? Like, do you know how they are on the right and the left of a person? He doesn't know. If you tell them about the life of the barzakh, the world of the barzakh, do you know how that is? They will say no. Do you know if, okay, the jinns, they are this and that, do you know how they look like? Do you know how they're created? Do you know how they move? Do you know how they do this? Do you know how they do that? The angels, do you know how they, descend over the sky, come down? Do you know how that happens? Right? He doesn't know. So these are from the matters of the unseen. Afterwards, when I told him that, he was quiet. And then I showed him evidences, adillah, that Allah has a makan, has a place which is in al-ulu. From the Quran and the Sunnah, from the scholars of the Salaf, from the tafsir of Ahlul Sunnah, like Ibn Kathir, Al-Qurtubi, Al-Tabari, Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim, Imam, many of the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah. And I started reading it down and giving him the references. Look. He sat in front of me. He was quiet about it afterwards. So this is what I'm trying to say. When Farid made this video, maybe he intended something, but really this video that he made casts many doubts upon people. He's casting very much doubts upon people. If you have nothing good to say, just be quiet. There's no need to make that video about the innovators. And the scholars, this is also what Farid is doing. This can be a criticizing way to the scholars of Islam and Salafiyya. For example, Sheikh Salih Fawzan, Ibn Uthaymeen, Al-Albani, Ushaw, all the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they say it is not permissible to sit with an innovator. Now, when is it permissible to sit with an innovator? There's tafsir in that. There's context, different context in that. If you were basically a very, very big scholar who knows how to differentiate between the truth and falsehood, you can look into these books as long as their books are what? They have innovations غير مكفرة, meaning innovation does not lead to kufr. And if they have innovations that go against usul Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. This is for the biggest scholars. Now Farid was saying, oh, but how come this guy takes from this guy? I'm going to tell him. When he said, he took things out of context. When he says that the scholars are upon that you're not allowed to sit with an innovator or listen to him at all, he took this out of context, because basically when we say, if this scholar wants to refute an innovator, how can he do so? Without sitting with him, without discussing with him, without looking at his books, reading his books. There's steps to that, there's context. Either if you are able to refute this guy, you have a lot of ilm, you're a scholar, you know how to differentiate between falsehood, truth and falsehood, like Imam Ahmad, Imam Bukhari, which he mentioned. These are all big scholars. They know how to differentiate between truth and falsehood. They will read the books of innovators to refute them. They will even read the books of the Rafidah themselves, the Rafidah, the Shia themselves, to refute them. So he took it out of context. So he says, oh, some scholars on a video, you're not allowed to sit with an innovator at all or take any knowledge from him. Right? He took it out of context. You're not allowed to accompany them. Okay, but how about when the scholars go to refute them? Go to sit with them, to listen to them, or to listen to them on the internet, or to read their books and able to refute them, for the niyyah to refute them. If we're gonna say there's a talib and there's a student of knowledge who's small or who is medium and wants to go and refute an innovator, a big innovator, this guy is not allowed to look at their books. Because if this guy tries to refute an innovator, he doesn't have enough ilm. He might, when he's reading the books, he might himself, if he's intending to refute him, he might back up and say, oh, he might start following the innovator himself while looking at the books, because of his weak ilm on aqidah. So the big scholars of Islam were not allowed to take aqidah matters from the innovators. The Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, usul al-aqidah, there's no khilaf in it. There is ijma', there's consensus, there is no difference of opinion concerning the usul of aqidah Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So in matters of aqidah, there is no ikhtilaf. In matters of aqidah Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, there is no ikhtilaf between all the scholars of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. You know, where is Allah, where is obeying the Muslim leader, Allah's direction, Allah descends, for example, in the matter that befits him, which we don't know, but he descends, of course, literally in a matter that befits him, right? These are matters when the scholars say, okay, if this person, khalas, this is aqidah, you're not allowed to take it from innovators. But when it comes to fiqh issues or small minor issues, a person himself doesn't go and take it from an innovator. No, it is a scholar who might, if he wants to take these fiqh issues that may agree with the Quran and Sunnah, he can. But like I'm saying, today we have many scholars. So why there is a need to read al-Zamakhshari, the books of innovators, to refute them, when the scholars already have, have already given us many knowledge of our aqidah? Why Ahlul Haqq need to go instead and take from the Ahlul Batil? How can you take like a false thing from the people of the Batil? Like if in the Torah and the Gospel, there are verses that are still there that are not corrupted. They're sent from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're not corrupted. Why didn't the Prophet Muhammad tell Umar, oh, you can take from the non-corrupted verses and leave the uncorrupted verses from the Bible? No, he says, khalas, I came to you with a pure, clean, which basically which is infallible, the Quran and the Sunnah, which has no defects in it and will never be corrupted at all. So I came clear to you with that. Why don't you follow that, the clear one? Why do you need to take from the books, from the previous books, and know which one was revealed by Allah or not? So like I said, everything that the innovators have there is certainly, he can find it 10 times. If everything the innovators have from one truth, if an innovator has one truth, right, if he mentions one truth, the person of Ahlul Sunnah, the non-innovator, has 10 times the proof of this one truth that the innovator has. 10 times. Why can't he find it from Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah? And when the scholars of Islam all right now warn people from sitting with innovators, they might be misled by innovators, right? Now Farid is coming and saying, and Farid is a layman like us all. Maybe he has a degree or certificate in something, but of course in his stance, he is not a scholar. He is not that knowledgeable when it comes to these matters. And mashallah, he is very knowledgeable in other things. Why doesn't he focus on those other things? But bringing up this causes doubts in people's hearts, and the laymen that are listening to him, they will start to be misled. And his video will right now be taken out of context by many people, used against the Salafis or against the scholars. They will say, oh look, Farid said this, you look up for Farid. Farid said this and that. Farid said that the scholars of Al-Sunnah took from innovators, so why don't you go take from Ikhwanis? So this is what will be their proof, and they'll take it out of context. The enemies of Islam will take things out of context, or the innovators will take things out of context from the video of Farid. And since Farid's channel is mixed, Allahu Alam, you may have Sunnis, you may have innovators, you may have Sufis, you may this and that. You don't know how much people view him or are his fans from many sects. So while saying that, this causes a fitna. And when the innovators start to say that and push people and use the video of Farid as an agenda against the people who follow pure Salafiyya and the scholars, these people will be misled and they will start to criticize the scholars themselves. Sheikh Salih Al-Fawzan says, no sitting innovators at all. Unless you know, if you know basics of Aqidah, you cannot take books, things from the innovators. If you're a high scholar, for example, you have many knowledge, you know the Aqidah of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and if you read something of the people of the innovation, you're able to differentiate because you have the knowledge of Aqidah. You have PhD in Aqidah of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, you know the Aqidah. So by that you can read to see the things there to be able to differentiate from truth and falsehood. But by Farid pulling out this video, this is a very deceiving video that he put out, and I advise him to remove it because it's not going to be good. It's not going to be a good result. It's basically going to open people. They're going to start doubting. They're going to say, oh, even laymen will start taking from the innovators. Even laymen will be deceived by the video and say, okay, we can take from the innovators. If I tell Farid, for example, can you take from Yasir al-Qadi, like as a person like me or as a person like you, can a person take from Yasir al-Qadi if he doesn't have knowledge of Islam, or he doesn't have knowledge of Aqidah, or he doesn't have knowledge about this and that? Can you take from Yasir al-Qadi or not? He will say, of course no, you cannot take ilm from Yasir al-Qadi, neither in Aqidah, neither in this, neither in that. Nothing, because there's already scholars. If Yasir al-Qadi is going to give fiqh of something, the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah have 10 times already explained this matter that Yasir al-Qadi, this small matter that he explained. The scholars of Islam have went through it in details and explained it in 10 times in the best manner that Yasir al-Qadi couldn't explain it. So I take it from him. And the asl is, if you're able to differentiate, if you have knowledge of Aqidah, which no one has except the scholars, you are able to look at these books, because when you're able to differentiate from truth and falsehood, you may be able to point out a truth that in a book that the innovators use, which goes against them, because you know how to differentiate between the truth and falsehood. But if you're a small person and that, you're not allowed at all to sit with innovators, to look at them, to take from Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. There's many scholars today. There's everything in books. And I remember one time Sheikh Salih Al-Fawzan was saying, knowledge is not taken from books. Knowledge is taken from the scholars. So you're not basically going to sit at home like Farid and read the books without knowing. Because if you read the books and you don't have the knowledge of Aqidah, you don't have this, you don't have that, you'll basically doubt things. You'll mix the East with the West. You'll think that this is what the author means. You'll think that this is what he means. You'll think this is what he means. You'll start mixing the truth with falsehood without knowing the context behind it, or the correct context. The context, you may think that the context appears this way, but it's not. So until now, when Farid made this video, I knew what Sheikh Salih Al-Fawzan meant by that. That a person must take it, if he's reading the book of Zamakhshari in front of Salih Al-Fawzan, Salih Al-Fawzan will be able to say, for example, this is Zamakhshari, his biography. He's a non-innovator, so knowledge is not taken from him. This is what he will say. He will make clear that this guy is an innovator. Second of all, and he will make clear that he's a Mu'tazili. And then second of all, if the book is read on him, Sheikh Salih Fawzan will say, okay, but when Al-Zamakhshari said this, he was wrong. And when he said this, he was right. So basically the scholar will be able to say which is wrong, which is right, not Al-Zamakhshari, right? And I will go through details of the video, inshallah. One more thing to mention before I go into the videos of the refutations. Some people use the hadith of Sahih Bukhari of Satan coming to Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu and teaching him Surat Ayat al-Kursi, teaching him Ayat al-Kursi. You know, when Abu Hurairah met Satan and Satan told him, when you go to bed, make sure to read Ayat al-Kursi and al-Mu'awwidat, and Satan will not come close to you, right? This is when Satan came to Abu Hurairah and told him that, in the form of a man. When Satan came from a man. Some people use this and say that this is, take the good from the worst people, from the bad people like Satan. Take the good and leave the bad. But they actually refuted their own selves. Because Abu Hurairah did not do what Satan told him until he went to the Prophet Muhammad and mentioned to him what this man, Satan, has told him to do. That he needs to go to bed. Before he goes to bed, he reads Ayatul Kursi and that. Until he confirmed it with the Prophet, then Abu Hurairah did it. When the Prophet allowed him to do it, then Abu Hurairah did it. But if the Prophet wasn't there at the time of the Sahaba, and this event took place with Abu Hurairah, when the Prophet was not there and he was dead, for example, the Sahaba will not at all agree with Satan. They will say he is an innovator, because the Prophet is not alive between them to explain to them, to tell them that you should do that. You should read the Mu'awwidat and Ayat al-Kursi before going to bed. But because the Prophet was alive, Abu Hurairah went and asked the Prophet to confirm it with him. He didn't take it in anything this way. And this is also, we can say by this step, if someone comes with something, right? If someone comes with something with no evidence, if someone was to hear something from an innovator, he must first go to the scholar to confirm it with him. If the scholar said this and that and confirmed that this innovator was wrong according to the evidence from the Quran and Sunnah, or that this innovator was right according to the Quran and Sunnah evidences, then this person may be forbidden by the scholar or allowed by the scholar, but not himself to go listen to the innovator and take from him what he thinks is fits or what he thinks is not. Right? He has to go check with the scholar, just like Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. When Satan came to him and told him this, he went and checked it, confirmed it with the Prophet Muhammad and did it.
فضيلة الشيخ وفقكم الله يقول: ما حكم أخذ العلم ممن عنده بعض البدع في الفعل والعمل وليس في باب العقيدة؟ هل يجوز الدراسة على يديه؟
يا أخي، العلماء ولله الحمد متوفرون، وما أحوجك الله إلى مبتدع تأخذ عنه العلم. لا تجوز مجالسة المبتدع، كيف بأخذ العلم عنه؟ نعم.
أحسن الله إليكم صاحب الفضيلة. هذا سائل يقول: في قول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لأبي هريرة رضي الله عنه: صدقك وهو كذوب، بعض الناس يقول إن فيه دليل على أنه يجوز أن ندرس أو أن نأخذ العلم أو الحق ولو عند الكفار أو عند المبتدعين، فهل هذا صحيح؟
لا، ما هو بصحيح، هذا ما هو بصحيح. هذه حال جرت لأبي هريرة رضي الله عنه من أجل أن يعلم الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم أصحابه فضل هذه الآية، يعلمهم فضل هذه الآية. وأما غير الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم فلا يحصل هذا. فنحن لا نتعلم على المنحرفين وعلى أهل الضلال وعلى المبتدعة، وإنما نتعلم على العلماء الراسخين المستقيمين، وهم موجودون ولله الحمد، فلسنا بحاجة إلى أن نتعلم على هؤلاء. نعم.
يقول: فضيلة الشيخ وفقكم الله، هل يجوز لطالب العلم المبتدئ أن يقرأ في كتب أهل البدع؟
لا، المبتدئ لا، لكن يتعلم كتب العقائد ويتدرج شيئا فشيئا. أول شيء يأخذ الأشياء اللي ما فيها خلاف، مثل ثلاثة الأصول، مثل كتاب التوحيد، مثل العقيدة الواسطية، تدرج شيئا فشيء. فإذا أنه صار عنده مبلغ من العلم يطلع على كتب الفرق نعم.
ما رأي، يقول السائل، ما رأي سماحتكم في قراءة كتب المبتدعة، خاصة إن كانت كتبهم أو أخطاؤهم متعلقة بالعقيدة؟ وهل إذا كان المبتدع برز في علم من العلوم يقرأ له في ذلك العلم؟ وما هو واجبنا تجاه المبتدعة؟
الواجب بيان البدعة. إذا كان صاحب علم يقرأ الكتاب ويبين البدعة للناس حتى يحذروها، يريد الضلالة والخطأ حتى يحذروه. وإذا وجد في الكتاب فائدة مطلوبة، يقبل الحق من جاء به. لكن المهم تنبيه الناس على البدع والشرور التي في الكتاب. إذا كان بين الناس رائجا تبين بدعته ويبين ما فيه من الخطأ حتى يجتنب.
بارك الله فيكم. تفسير الزمخشري رحمه الله هل يقرأ مع كتب السلف ابن كثير والجرير
يعني يقرأ على من؟ المراجعة يعني؟ نعم يراجع.
السائل: هل من حرج على طالب العلم أن يقرأ من تفسير الرازي أو الزمخشري قبل أن ترسخ قدمه في العقيدة، لأن بعض الناس يحيل الطلاب على هذه المؤلفات؟
نعم، المؤلفات التي في التفسير فيها كلام من كلام المعطلة لا يجوز للمبتدئ أن يقرأ فيها، ولا يجوز للمعلم أن يحيل عليها. إنما العالم الذي عنده تمكن وعنده معرفة لما فيها من الأخطاء لا بأس أن يطلع عليها ويأخذ مما فيها من الفوائد ويترك ما فيها من الخطأ. أما طالب العلم والمبتدئ فهذا يبتعد عنها، لأنه قد يغتر بما فيها ويروج عليه ما فيها من الأخطاء. نعم.
الزمخشري صاحب الكشاف، تفسير اسمه الكشاف. الزمخشري من كبار المعتزلة الذين لا يثبتون أي صفة من صفات الرب سبحانه وتعالى، الذين حرفوا نصوص الصفات، لأن الرجل متمكن في فروع اللغة العربية، في النحو والصرف والبلاغة. وفي البلاغة يعتبر إماما، استغل فروع اللغة العربية ومعرفته للبلاغة، استغل ذلك وسلط على نصوص الصفات فحرفها وأولها وعطل معانيها. من ذلك قال الزمخشري ما معناه عند تفسير هذه الآية: إن الله يأتي بعذاب في الغمام الذي ينتظر منه الرحمة. هذا معنى يأتي ربه.
الزمخشري معتزلي في العقيدة، عن عقيدة الاعتزال، فهو تفسير مطبوع يقال أنه مفيد من حيث اللغة، لكن في الاعتقاد هو منحرف من علماء المعتزلة. ولذلك حتى اللي طالب علم أو متوسط أو مبتدأ ما يقرأ فيه، لأن ما قد يعني يدخل عليه أشياء منحرفة في العقيدة ولا يشعر، غير متحصن في العلم الصحيح. نعم. الزمخشري له كتاب تفسير، هو يعني قوي جدا في اللغة، لكن في العقيدة هو على عقيدة الاعتزال، يعني في باب الأسماء والصفات ينفي صفات الله عز وجل، ولذلك ما يقرأ فيه أي واحد. هذا كتاب مطبوع متوفر، ما يقرأ فيه أي واحد، يقرأ فيه من هو متمكن من العقيدة حتى يستفيد من الكتاب. أما من كان مبتدئا ما يعرف يعني أمور العقيدة، أو يعرف لكن معرفة سطحية، أو مبتدئ في العلم، فلا يقرأ هذه الكتب التي فيها ماذا؟ فيها من الاعتزال أو التمشعر أو التصوف أو نحو ذلك، فقد تختلط عليه الأمور. نعم.
يقول: هل تنصحون طالب العلم أن يستفيد من كتاب الزمخشري في اللغة والبلاغة؟
المتمكن ننصح المتمكن، أما اللي ما تمكن فلا ننصحه أن يقرأ فيه، لأنه يختلط عليه، لا سيما وأنه يذم أهل السنة والجماعة، يذمهم يقدح فيهم بنفس التفسيرات. هم نخاف إذا صار هذا ما يدري يبغض أهل السنة والجماعة. نعم.
يستفسر يا شيخ ويسألكم بكتاب تفسير الزمخشري، وما أفضل التفاسير لطالب العلم المبتدئ
أفضل التفاسير لطالب العلم المبتدئ تفسير الشيخ ابن سعدي رحمه الله، تفسير واضح وتفسير مختصر وخلاصة طيبة. وإذا ترقى عن ذلك فأيضا تفسير ابن كثير رحمه الله تفسير موثوق وجيد وعلى مذهب السلف، وكذلك تفسير الإمام البغوي رحمه الله تفسير سلفي جيد. وأعلى من ذلك وأصل التفاسير وأمها تفسير ابن جرير الطبري رحمه الله. هذه هي التفاسير المعتبرة السليمة من التأويلات الباطلة في الأسماء والصفات.
من المهم جدا على جميع الناس أن يأخذوا شروح هذه الأحاديث من أهل العلم. لماذا؟ لأن للأسف الشديد يوجد من الناس من يسطو على مثل هذه الكتب ويتصدى لشرح هذه الأحاديث وهو لا يمتلك أدوات الفهم الصحيح لسنة النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام، وليس عنده قواعد السلف الصالح في التعامل مع هذه الأحاديث، وربما يكون لديه خلفيات فكرية منحرفة فيذهب ويختطف هذه الأحاديث ويوظفها توظيف يتناسب ويتناغم مع ما لديه من انحرافات فكرية أو عقدية أو منهجية. وهذه حقيقة يعني مسؤولية أيضا جميع الناس أن يتقوا الله وأن لا يأخذوا شروحات هذه الأحاديث إلا من أهل العلم، من طلاب العلم السائرين على منهج السلف الصالح في التلقي والاستدلال والفهم.
لذلك أنا بيعجبني أحيانا تشدد بعض السلف في ماذا؟ في نهيهم عن مجالسة أهل البدعة. حتى كانوا يخشون على أنفسهم، هذا من عجائب. نعم، كانوا يخشون على أنفسهم لعله يعلق شبهة من هذا المجادل بالباطل في قلب من العالم، ما بالك بالنسبة لعامة الناس. ولذلك هؤلاء لا يجوز في فضائلهم، وإنما يقال لهم في هناك علماء في طلبة علم تقدر تجتمع معهم تتفاهم معهم. نحن ما ندري هذا الكلام اللي أنت تحكيه، أما نقعد نسمع كل يوم في دين، كل يوم في رأي.
إذاعة زدن العلمية تقدم
رضي الله عنه قال
لأن قد يقبل من صاحب الباطل كثير من باطله لأنه قال تمره بحق. هذا لا يدل على أن أهل الباطل كل ما يقولونه 100% باطل، لكن نقول دع الباطل وأهل الباطل وإن قالوا بالحق، فما قالوا من الحق هو عندنا أصلا، وما عندهم من باطل نحن عنه في غنى. واضح؟ ولو عيد. ولذلك تجد البعض يقول اقرأ فما وجدت من حق اقبله وما وجدت من باطل فرده، وما يدريك أنك أخذت الباطل تظنه حق. ما هي دلالات معرفة الحق من الباطل عندك؟ ما هي موازين الفرقان أن تعرف هذا كلام أولياء الرحمن أم شقشقة أولياء الشيطان حتى يكون عندك فرقان تميز به بين الحق والباطل؟ وأنت لا تزال حديث عهد بإسلام أو جديد في استقامة أو جديد في معرفة الأدلة، فإذا بك تخوض أمور يتوقف عنها الكبار وأنت تخون فيها الغمار. اعرف قدرك والزم غرز العلماء واسلك سبيل التوحيد والسنة، وإياك وبنيات الطريق فتتبع أهل الأهواء والبدع تظن أنك على شيء وأنت تتخبط في كل شيء. احذر أن يقودك دعاة الباطل. يأتينا من يقول الجماعة الفلانية فيها خير والجماعة الفلانية فيها خير، ومن قال لك أنهم شياطين يمشون على الأرض؟ كل فيه خير وفيه شر، لكن ما فيه من خير أليس مخلوط بالشر؟ إذن عليك بما فيه خير محض ودع منك الشر كله، كل الشر اتركه. لو ذهبت الآن تبي تشتري لك شيء، برتقال، تفاح، طماط من السوق، وباعك راعي الصندوق، وش بتقول له؟ عطني ولا بتنقى؟ ولا جاك الصندوق خربان، وش بتقول له؟ شيل الخربانة وخل الصاحية. ولا أنت بتنقى الزين وتخلي الشيء. هذا البطنك. ومن فعل هذا في الناس من غشنا فليس منا. هذا في البر والطحين، فكيف من يغش الناس في الدين؟ فإذا أتيت في أمور دينك تسمع داعي من دعاة البدع وتقول اللي عنده من الخير باخذه واللي عنده من الشر بخليه، وأنت وش يدريك أنه قال خير ولا شر؟ ألا تعلم أن الفتن والشبه خطافة؟ عمر بن الخطاب لما وجد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في يده نسخة من التوراة، هل التوراة كلها باطل؟ حرف بعضها، لكن الباقي والمحرف هل نعلم ما هو الذي حرف والذي بقي؟ لا. ماذا قال له؟ قال خذ منها ما فيها خير وترك ما فيها من شر يا عمر؟ قال أمتهوكون يا ابن الخطاب وقد أتيتكم بها بيضاء نقية لو كان فيها خير ما ضلوا. هل تعون هذا الكلام؟ قال أمتهوكون يا ابن الخطاب، يعني أنت في شك من أمرك لما تأخذ من هذه النسخة. ولذلك قال أهل العلم يقال في كتب أهل البدع كما قال النبي في نصحه لابن الخطاب: عليك بكتب السنة وأهل السنة، ارجع للبخاري، ارجع لمسلم، ارجع لدواوين العلماء المعروفين، واترك من قيل فيه وقد قيل. هذا في الأكل. في الشرب ما تأخذ لك ماعون تشك وش هو فيه، ولا تشتري لك بضاعة أنت ما تدري وش هي عليه. هذا في بيت لو سألت وقال لك هذا البيت فيه وهذا البيت زين، فاختلف في مدحه وذمه، هملت رحت شريت لك بيت ثاني. مرة تبي تتزوجها وذكروها بسوء ولا ذكروها عندها بس عندها وعندها، أنت تبي وهي أنثى. في زواجك تنك، في بطنك، وفي مسكنك. سيارة بتشتريها لابد وتروح تسوي فحص وتسوي لها. دينك تخم من أي واحد تسمع، من أي كتاب تقرأ، وهو دينك بينك يوم القيامة. لذلك ماذا قال السلف الصالح؟ إن هذا العلم دين، انظروا عمن تأخذون دينكم، انظروا عمن تأخذون دينكم. يأخذ الدين ممن يعرف منه الدين. ولذلك انتبه عمن تأخذ دينك، من هو منه؟ من أهل العلم الذين عرفوا بالعلم وبتلقي العلم عمن قبلهم من أهل العلم عمن قبلهم، كما قال سلمان الفارسي: لا يزال الناس بخير. وارجعوا لهذا الحديث في مقدمة الدارمي، قال: لا يزال الناس بخير ما أخذوا العلم عمن قبلهم، لا يزال الناس بخير ما أخذ الأول عن الآخر، فإذا هلك الأول قبل أن يأخذ الآخر هلك الناس. لا يزال الناس بخير ما أخذ الآخر عن الأول، فإذا هلك الأول قبل الآخر هلك الناس. يعني ما فيه تسلسل في العلم، انقطع. ما عندنا هكذا طالب علم وشيخ يطلع فجأة طالب علم شيخ هكذا، لابد معروف بعلمه وتعلمه، عمن تلقى عمن تعلم. واليوم الحمد لله مجالس العلم موجودة وجامعاتنا وأمورها وأشياءها. انتبه، فتلقي العلم من الأمور المهمة. يقول ابن عباس: إياكم ومجالسة أهل الأهواء والبدع فإنها ممرضة للقلوب، إني أخشى أن يغمسوكم في ضلالتهم أو أن يلبسوا عليكم ما عندكم من حق. تشك، إني أخشى أن يغمسوكم في ضلالتهم أو أن يلبسوا عليكم ما عندكم من حق. هذا في المجالسة. ابن سيرين أتاه رجل يريد أن يقرأ عليه من القرآن، قال: لا أسمع منك، ووضع أصبعيه في أذنيه، ما أسمع منك. فلما سئل، وهو ابن سيرين من كبار العلماء وتابع التابعين، قال: إني أخشى أن يقول كلمة فيقذف الله في قلبي تلك الشبهة أو يمرر علي ما يريد أو هكذا قال. انتبهوا، هذه أمور مهمة. ولذلك ذكر هنا فيأتي مسترق السمع فيأخذ الكلمة، أي كلمة حق، فيضيف لها 100 كلمة من الباطل، فتقبل الناس 100 كلمة من الباطل لأنه قال تلك الكلمة التي سمعها من مسترق السمع فنقلها إليه فتقع، فيقول الناس ألم يقل كذا وحصل كذا، فينسون 100 باطل. وهذا دليل على أن أصحاب الباطل يمرر 99% من الباطل والكذب والزور ويصدق في واحدة. كفانا الله وإياكم شرهم. نعم.